Morning. How's everybody doing? Very sleepy, hungover, yes, I understand. So we're going to start the day with community management ROI, which I know is ambitious. I'm also going to yell at you a little bit, not too much, just a little, which is ironic because I'm actually a pretty nice guy and I have to do the mean talk, and David's a total jerk in real life. It's out of control. No, he's great. This is sort of an unenviable spot because I do have to go after him, but it doesn't mean I get to enjoy the rest of the day. So, community management ROI in 20 minutes. I'm Evan Hamilton. I'm very creative with my websites and handles online. It's my name. You can find me there. I'm one of you. This is my third CMX. Very excited to be here. I've been in community management for 7+ years. I didn't bother to count, but something like that. Worked at Flock, User Voice, Zozy, and in a couple weeks, Coursera. I host community manager breakfasts in San Francisco. We just did one downstairs, thanks to everybody who came. Pretty much we just get together and drink coffee and talk about community. So clearly I enjoy talking about this. And I'm not a math whiz. And this is important because ROI is scary. I'm scared of it too, but I have been able to understand it, to start to measure it. Lots of other people have who are much smarter than me. You don't have to be a math whiz, so don't be intimidated by anything we're going to talk about. So ROI, in case you don't know what that is and you're like, what is this talk? I'm very confused. Return on investment. You spend $10, you make $15, your ROI is $5. So today, I want everyone to leave able to start measuring basic ROI. You may not have an extremely robust system, but you're going to start. So we're going to talk about why this is important, finding your goals, metrics and analytics, and then navigating ROI in your organization. And because it's early, we're talking about math, my presentation is gray for some reason, we're going to keep it entertaining with kittens. So, right? They're so cute. All right. So this is where I yell at you. Why this is important. Saying this is hard is lame. We need to stop doing this. For years, community managers have said, ROI is just so hard to measure. You know, it's really tricky. It's a soft science. We can't measure it. This is not a good excuse. And in fact, it makes people see us sort of like this. People think, oh yeah, this guy figured out a way because he's young and he understands the internet that he can get a job where all he does is sit around and tweet. Obviously, that's not what you all do all day, but that's how it's interpreted. And more importantly, eventually the hammer will land. And I'm not trying to depress you, but no matter what, if you're not showing ROI at some point, you're going to run into a situation like, well, do you really need that hire? I know you've been here for 2 years, but I'm just not sure we have the budget to give you a raise. No, I don't care about engagement. Put a bunch of product links in there and sell some stuff. Well, I have an MBA and you don't, so we have to cut costs. You're going to be part of the sales team now. And my favorite, the new CEO would love a run-through of what exactly it is that you do for this company. This is going to happen, and I'm just being realistic here. It's okay. You're going to come out of today ready to measure this. So why don't we show ROI? If it's this important, why aren't we all doing this? Well, first of all, it is hard. Absolutely hard. Doesn't matter. We need to figure it out. There are benefits beyond ROI, right? Having an engaged community means if something happens, if your community runs into trouble, your company, sorry, your community is going to back you up. That doesn't matter. Sorry. This matters to us. It doesn't matter to the CEO, to the board. There are a lot of junior people in community roles, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they're often handed the whole community operation with no experience, very few resources. Thankfully, CMX is starting to provide these resources, but you don't hear about the whole marketing operation being given to a junior marketing person, right? So it's challenging. There's a lot of people who are new. When I started doing this, I had no idea what I was doing. And the last part, and David spoke about this a little bit, there are a lot of companies unwilling to measure this. And that's very frustrating, and we'll get back to that at the end. So a quick note on theories. Again, I'm not a math whiz. Nothing I'm going to say today is going to be like breakthrough, like Stephen Hawking is going to be calling me. But what I hope this and some of the other talks will do today is what Malcolm Gladwell talks about. I love this quote. People are experience rich and theory poor. People who are busy doing things, all of you, don't have opportunities to collect and organize their experiences and make sense of them. So you're busy doing stuff, you don't have time to take a step back and look at everything. I highly recommend speaking at a conference because it forces you to do that. So hopefully I can give you a framework today that helps you. So step number one, let's dive in. Know what the goal is. And this may seem really easy and obvious, but it's not always. It is not engagement. If I hear another person say, oh, what I do for my company is I engage our customers, I will be very upset. That is how you do it. And engagement is very important. But what you're doing for the company is not engagement. Engagement does not pay the bills. And this isn't me being cynical, this is just me being realistic. Your company needs to make money in order to pay you money. So your goal is an engagement. That's something you will be doing. But at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line. It's not me being cynical, just realistic. So as I look at this, and similar to what David was just saying, this breaks down into retention or acquisition. So either you're keeping customers around, getting them to use the product more, or you're acquiring new customers. So if you are not sure of the answer here, or you don't think your boss is sure of the answer, which is very dangerous, keep asking until you get the answer. So I borrowed this from Feverbee, wonderful Richard Millington, thank you. So what's the goal? Ask your boss. To increase loyalty. Well, that's not a goal. Does loyalty pay the bills? No. Why do we care if customers are more loyal? They visit our website more frequently. Okay, we're getting close, but website visits don't pay the bill. So what happens if they visit the website more frequently? They buy more of our products. Great. So in this case, you're trying to get customers to visit more and buy more products. Perfect. You know what your goal is. Again, this isn't how you're going to go about community. This is what you're trying to do with your community. Your answer may be different, but take the 5 whys concept and just keep asking why until you have something that's really retention or acquisition. So secondly, we need to know what to measure, right? We have our goal, but now what are we going to look at to see if we're hitting that goal? So don't get me wrong, engagement is important, but that is a health metric. You're going to look at a bunch of health metrics to see how your community is doing, whether it is healthy and thriving and doing wonderful. ROI metrics are how are we affecting the bottom line. So some things that are commonly measured. For retention, there's customers churning less, using the product more, being more likely to spend more money, costing less to retain. On the acquisition side, there's being more likely to sign up or purchase your product. There's being more likely to upgrade or driving new leads. So these are some of the things we're going to look at. Cross-eyed kitten. See, it gets dry for a minute, but then we get a kitten. It works out great. Okay, so metrics and analysis. Can I go back to that kitten for a second? Okay. Okay, we're ready for metrics and analysis. So, data geek disclaimer. Yes, this is correlation, not causation. We'll come back to this. If you don't know what this means, don't worry about it. You'll learn about it in a moment. So very simply, you're just going to compare. You're going to compare apples to apples. So you're going to take 2 groups of customers, one group that does engage in your community and one that doesn't, and compare them and see which is providing more value for your company. Pretty straightforward, right? So first, you need a sample of active community members. So the first step there is define what active is. You don't want to include somebody who posted on your forum a year ago and never came back. Make sure you have a good definition of active. Then you're going to pull a list of active members. Hopefully you have some really awesome software that does this automatically for you. For many people, that won't be the case. And so you may have to do this very manually. When I was at User Voice, it was literally me creating a spreadsheet, entering every single user's email, then manually going on the forum and saying, okay, Joe24 has posted 3 times in the last 6 months. It may be hard. Again, ROI is hard, but you can do it. If you have too many, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, you'll just get what's called a systematic sample. So you're going to take every nth user. So you might have this group of community members, and you're going to take every 3rd member. So that's just a handy way to get a nice distributed group, but not have to look at a million different people. Kittens. So next you need your control group. You're just going to use the same exact method to get the same number of customers who are not in your community. So here we go. We've got our 3 non-community customers. You can see that if they're not part of the community, they're square because, let's be honest. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Let's say your goal is churning less. So in English, members of our community will be happier and thus use our product more, meaning we'll make more money. That might be off of ads, monthly software as a service fees, whatever. So you're going to measure churn. And churn is very simply this equation: customers at the start of the period minus customers at the end of the period divided by customers at the start of the period. If you're taking frantic notes, don't. We'll put these online. These aren't, I didn't invent these again, and neither did Stephen Hawking. These are just very common measurements for ROI for companies. So let's visualize this because this is confusing written out as words. So in January, you had 3 members of your community, or sorry, 3 customers who are not members of your community, but then in March you only had 1. So we have a 66% churn rate. So that means that 66% of your customers are ceasing usage of your product at the end of this time period. That's not very good, they're not sticking around. Whereas if you look at customers who are also part of your community, perhaps 2 of them stuck around. This is a very small sample. So you have a 33% churn rate. So congratulations, you get a gold star, you win. That's actually not that complicated. It seems like it, and math is scary to me too, but it's not that hard to do. And good news for SaaS companies, your company is probably already measuring this. They should be measuring it. And so you should be able to just say, hey, here are my 2 test groups, can you tell me what the churn is for each? Same thing with any sort of product usage. They should hopefully have that. If they don't, we'll get to that too. Kitten. Let's say your goal is they're more likely to spend more. So in English, members of our community will be happier and thus more likely to purchase more items from us. So this is actually what I was going for when I was at Zozy. We're an e-commerce site. So you want to look at lifetime value. So this is average order value multiplied by the number of repeat transactions, multiplied by the average retention months, so number of months a customer is sticking around for a typical customer. So visualizing again, we have our non-community members. They spend about $10 about 3 times every 4 months. So they are worth $120 a year, at least according to this equation. Community members, oh look, they're spending more often, and they're sticking around longer because they love our community. So they're worth $300 a year, gold star. Hopefully you're sensing a trend here. Quick case study here from a previous CMX. Erica Cole from Salesforce had a fantastic case study talking about how people who are active in the Salesforce community in the last 3 months spent 2 times more than people who are not active. So people are measuring this, and there is a real benefit to community. This is a tiger. Tigers are extremely adorable. Okay, so maybe you're like, wait a second, Evan, I don't know what this churn stuff is. My company doesn't track this. I'm scared. Why are you doing this to me? It's so early. So there's 2 options here. One is you could be the first and be a superhero. Aim for that if you can do that. If you're the first person in your organization to measure a health metric that affects the whole company, that's a win. If you can't, that's okay. Get simple. Look at surface level indicators. So things like Net Promoter Score, where you ask, how likely are you on a scale of, I think it's 0 to 10, to recommend our product to a friend or family member? Or customer satisfaction, how happy are you with our product? And these are survey-based, so you don't need any product info, you don't need to bug any developers. You just send a survey and you say, are you part of our community or not? And then how happy are you, or how likely are you to recommend our product? So this is what I did when I was at User Voice. We did a survey and we said, how have you interacted with us? Have you interacted on our forum, on our blog, at our meetups, at our conference? And then how do you feel about the product? Bad, okay, good, or excellent? What we found is overall, people felt pretty good about the product, but there was some discontent. For people who had no interactions with our community efforts, they felt a little less good about the product. But for people who had 4 or more touch points with our community efforts, 0 of them felt bad about the product, and the majority felt excellent. And so what's really impressive about this is we weren't asking how do you feel about the company, we were asking how do you feel about the product. The community doesn't actually change the product, but because it was such a great experience, it made people like the product more. So that's a great surface level indicator. This doesn't necessarily tell you dollars, but this at least shows, hey, we're making a difference, we're making people like the product more, which probably means that they're gonna stick around and use it longer. Let's say your goal is for customers to cost less to retain. So you have a support forum. You say members of our community will help each other with common issues and questions, so we don't have to spend money on it. Great. So we're gonna look at the forum cost divided by the number of deflected support contacts. Deflected support contacts, all that means is someone who would have normally emailed you for help, read a forum post, and didn't email you. So you're gonna ask people who use your forum, did you have an issue and did you find a solution? You're gonna take the percentage who said, yes, I did, and yes, you solved it, multiply that by total visitors, because obviously you can't get everyone to respond to a survey, and that's gonna give you your number of deflected contacts. Then you're gonna just take the cost of your forum efforts and divide it by the number of people you deflected, and compare that to the cost of your support team divided by the number of calls. Again, all of this will be online. We're just going over the broad strokes here. So what does this look like? 2 out of 4 people said that their issue was solved, so 50% deflection rate, great. And you have 500 visitors coming to your forum per month. So that's 250 people per month who are being deflected. Your forum costs $2,000 per month, including community management, team, and the forum software, which you should check out the sponsors. Tip your bartender, all that. So your deflection cost is $8 per deflection. Now, if you compare that to your support team, who we dearly love, but are not quite as efficient as a forum, they're costing $8,000 per month and helping 800 people per month. So it's actually costing them $10 per call or email. So you get the gold star. And what's powerful about this and pretty much any community effort is that it scales exponentially. If you have to scale your support team, that's gonna scale very linearly, right? If all of a sudden you have 1,600 people calling per month, you're gonna have to double your support team. If you have more people visiting your forum, you may not have to do anything, right? Because one forum post can help as many people as you send to it. And so that's part of the value here, is that often community is going to be cheaper because it's not about linearly scaling, just hiring more and more people on your staff. I know, a lot of math. This is an ocelot kitten. It is amazing. Okay, let's look at one more, I think. So more likely to sign up and purchase. Members of the community will be more likely to try our paid product. So you're gonna look at the number of people who signed up after coming through your community divided by the number of community visitors. Quick pro tip here, I don't have time to talk about it, but Google Tag Manager is an amazing tool with basically one-time dev work, and then you, without any dev effort, can start measuring clicks on basically anything on your site. Check it out because it's an amazing tool and saves you a lot of headache. So then we're gonna compare this to the number of people who visited our normal website divided by the number who signed up after visiting our website, divided by the number of website visitors. So what does this look like? Normally, people come to our website, 3 people visit, 1 person signs up. That's a 33% conversion rate. Whereas community members, 2 out of every 3 sign up, 66% conversion rate, gold star. So again, we're just comparing apples to apples. Quick case study here. Thank you to the wonderful Jennifer Sable-Lopez of Moz for sharing this. They found that people who spent more than 31 days in their community, which is an amazing community for inbound marketers, were basically twice as likely to sign up for a pro account, which makes sense because the community is so incredibly valuable that, again, they're gonna see the product as, oh my God, this must be incredible as well. Kittens. So, you can do this. These equations exist. You get your 2 apples, you compare them, then you compare that to how much you're spending via other efforts. And that's where you get your ROI. It's not rocket surgery. You find your equation, you get your samples, you compare community to non-community, and then adjust until profitable. So, easy, right? Okay, here's the bad news. I'm really sorry. Kitten. He's not happy either. So I've been cheating a little bit when it comes to control groups. I said we were comparing apples to apples. We've actually been comparing apples to crab apples. Which is to say, people who join your community probably already loved you, right? If they're willing to join your community, especially early adopters. So they probably were already spending more money than the other people. So comparing the two groups, it's not super effective. And this is correlation versus causation. So my favorite example of this is, for a long time, everyone would cite this study that said, people who drink wine live longer. And we all rejoiced and we were like, great, break out the wine. But this was just correlation. They just found, oh, well, it looks like people who drink wine live longer, so probably that's why. And then when they looked into it more, they found that actually people who drink wine tend to have more money, which means they're more likely to have health care, which means they're more likely to be able to take time off and take care of themselves. So that's why they were living longer. And the wine just happened to be a result of them having more money. Causation would have been taking 1,000 people, splitting them in half, saying, this 500, you can never drink wine again. I'm so sorry. So this half of the room, I apologize. This half of the room, I need you to drink 1 glass of wine at least every day. Congratulations. 50 years from now, we look at how many are alive in each group. So we'll all come back here in 50 years, see who's alive. That would be causation because we would be able to say, okay, we specifically controlled this test. That said, I think correlation is an okay starting point. Richard Millington, wherever he is, may be angry with me for saying this. Every case study we've looked at so far has been correlation. It's harder to measure causation. It requires more resources from your company, which we already know is a challenge. So if you can only do correlation, that's fine. Let's start there, and then we'll work towards causation. But just so I've done my due diligence, causation, let's talk about it really quick. One way to do it, which arguably works, is looking at how people behaved before and after they joined the community. So these customers, before they joined the community, the 6 months prior, they spent $20, but after they joined the community, the 6 months after, they spent $100. That's one way to do it. The best way, the holy grail, is A/B testing and saying literally, this group of people we're going to promote the community to, we're really going to try to engage them. This group, we're not going to tell them about our parties, we're not going to invite them to the forum, we're going to ostracize them. And then looking at which group performs better. So that's the holy grail, let's get there someday, but if you can't get there, it's okay, correlation is all right. And so this would be splitting the apple. Kittens. Okay, so lastly, getting management buy-in and resources. This is a common challenge. I've talked to a lot of people who say, I want to try to measure ROI, but I ask my company for developer resources, for analytics time to teach me how to do something, and they say that it's not worth the effort. And it's kind of a vicious cycle, right? Because you're trying to measure this, they say no, and then later you ask for more resources. Hey, I need to hire someone. And they say, oh, well, I don't know if we can put that much money into community. So it's very frustrating. So here's a couple tips. If you can go directly to your developers to get the analytics, the data you need, fantastic. My #1 tip for developers is be nice. You're all very good at this, so. But actually get to know them. You know, they are human beings. They may not seem like it sometimes, but they're actually very nice. Get to know them, and not in a manipulative way, but just in a, like getting to know your coworkers. Strike during lulls. So part of getting to know them is knowing when they're busy. If they're like, oh my God, we're working on this huge problem, it's so much work, like so stressed out, that is not the time to ask for help. But if you get to know them and you're communicating regularly, you can know, oh, they're finishing up this project, like this guy's bored, this is the time. And ask them if they can teach you. They love this. Because either they can, and great, you don't ever have to bug them again. Even if they can't, they're going to appreciate that you were willing to try. Because let's be honest, most people are not. So getting management to bother is trickier. Part of it may be just institutional. David mentioned that. But a couple tips. Jealousy is great. Tell them about this presentation. Say, hey, Salesforce, Google, Moz, all these companies are measuring this, and we're falling behind. So make them jealous. I forget who this tip is from. I will figure it out and thank them on Twitter. But bug your COO, your CFO, your finance person. They hate wasting money. So tell them, hey, I just want to make sure I'm not wasting too much of the company's money. They will help you out. If you don't have any really in-house analytics or data expertise, if nobody really does that, think about bringing in an analytics consultant, which we did at Zozy, because nobody really knew how to do it. And if it's hurting your department, it's definitely hurting other departments. So this helps everybody. And lastly, hack version 1 yourself. Again, look at surface level indicators if you have to. Do what I did at User Voice, where I literally just surveyed customers. I didn't need any fancy product data. Do V1 and say, hey, here's my correlation. Here's my first step. It does look like there's a benefit here. I'd love to measure more deeply. So, in closing, wow, I actually hit my time. I'm very impressed with myself. Go do this. I want everybody here to go back, maybe not tomorrow. Tomorrow, nurse your hangover. The day after, go back to work and start measuring. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. You can do it quietly. You can slowly work on it. You don't need to freak anyone out. But start working on this. Talk to your fellow community managers. Wow, I just got an extra minute. Great. Thank you, God of the timer. Talk to your fellow community managers. We're all struggling with this. I don't think you'll meet anyone here who's like, oh, I know how to measure ROI, but I'm not going to help you. Talk to them here. Talk to them regularly. If you're in San Francisco, come to my community manager breakfast. Come to the CMX meetup. There's a couple meetups here in New York. If there's not one in your town, create one. Start talking to your fellow community managers, because we can all figure this out together. And you will be taken seriously. You will no longer be, I'm bored, work is hard, let's tweet. Literally, I showed this deck to my best friend, who's a growth engineer, and he was like, not that I didn't respect what you did before, but actually, now I see that there's value to it. So even my best friend didn't really believe in what I did. So showing ROI is very powerful. And the last thing is get piles of job offers. If you build an amazing community, you measure the ROI and you say, I help the bottom line, people will want to hire you. And that's a good place to be. So I think that's it. One more kitten. Thank you.